Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to this afternoon's Planning Board meeting at BCP Council. I'm Councillor Kelsey, and it is my job this afternoon to chair this meeting. Before we move ahead, I will go straight over to Democratic Services Officer to read out the housekeeping notices for this afternoon's meeting. Sarah.
Will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the Chairman. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name already. Mute your microphone when you are not talking. After the committee has heard from the Planning Officer and received written statements from the public and ward councillors, the Chairman will ask committee members who wish to speak to do so by typing RTS, request to speak, in the instant message conversation panel on the bottom left-hand side of your screen and click the arrow button to send. Please note this panel is visible to all parties. Please do not use this panel for any other purpose than requesting to speak. The Chairman will ask officers to respond or clarify as required. If at any point you would like to speak again, please type RTS, request to speak. Please note that when the vote is taken, the Chairman will read out the name of each committee member in turn, and they will need to indicate whether they are voting for or against the move or are abstaining from the vote altogether. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Sarah. First thing I will do is I will ask each person taking part this afternoon to identify themselves. I will call your name in turn. If you could just state who you are, please. I am Councillor Kelsey, I'm the Chairman. Councillor McCormack.
Councillor Simon McCormack, Vice Chair and Ward Member for Burton and Grange.
Thank you. Councillor Barron.
Thank you, Chair. Steve Barron, Ward Councillor for Parkstone.
Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, good afternoon. Councillor Steve Bartlett, Ward Member for Redhill and Northbourne.
Councillor Bull.
Good afternoon. Councillor Simon Bull, Councillor for Winton East.
Councillor Malcolm Davies.
Good afternoon. Councillor Malcolm Davies, Councillor for East Southbourne and Tuckton.
Councillor Norman Decent.
Councillor Norman Decent, Councillor for Kingston and West Hull.
Councillor Peter Hall.
Councillor Peter Hall from Christchurch Town Centre.
Councillor Paul Hilliard.
Good afternoon, Paul Hilliard, Ward Councillor for Muddyford, Stampit and West Highcliffe.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
Councillor Toby Johnson, Ward Member for Alderney and Bourne Valley.
Councillor Marion Lepedevin.
Marion Lepedevin, Member for Heatherlands and Newtown and Heatherlands.
Councillor Bob Lawton.
Councillor Bob Lawton, Councillor for West Southbourne.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
Tony O'Neill, Councillor for Pen Hill Ward.
Councillor Derek Borthwick. Councillor Borthwick.
Sorry. Throop and Mustard substituting for Councillor Stribley.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gould.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Simon Gould, Development Management Manager.
Mr. Hodges.
Thank you, Chairman. David Hodges, Team Leader, Development Management.
Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Chairman. Tanya Coulter, Senior Solicitor Legal Services.
And Sarah Colwick.
Thank you, Chairman. Sarah Colwick, Democratic Services. I will be clerking today's meeting.
Thank you very much for that. We will now move on to the agenda items for this meeting, and the first agenda item is apologies. Do we have any apologies, please, Sarah?
Apologies received, Chairman, from Councillor Anne Stribley, which obviously leads us on to item 2 and the substitution of Councillor Stribley by Councillor Derek Borthwick.
Thank you for that. Now, members, do we have any declarations of interest on this afternoon's applications? Before I come to that, I would just quickly say that we are only dealing with the Bar Gates application this afternoon. I will explain further once we've done these first part of the agenda. I see no declarations coming up, so therefore we have none, Sarah. Confirmation of minutes. Do committee members agree to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of September as an accurate account?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you for that, members. Now, public issues. I will explain after the officer's presentation that each individual application, I will refer to Democratic Officer to read out any written statements before we hear from any ward councillors who wish to speak. Now, members, I need to inform you of something that has happened this morning. Due to ongoing technical issues affecting the pool network today, officers are currently unable to gain remote access to the pool systems. As a result of these technical issues, the ability of officers to present the 2 planning applications listed on the agenda in the pool area, in accordance with the established protocol, is hampered. In the interest of consistency and ensuring members' deliberations on these 2 items are fully informed by information from all parties, the decision has been taken to defer these 2 pool planning applications until the next available scheduled planning committee on Thursday, the 15th of October. As the technical issues affecting the pool network are not impacting upon the Christchurch network, we are able to hear the item from Christchurch at 57 Bar Gates in the normal way. I'm sorry this is such late notice, members. We did try very, very hard from about 8:30 onwards this morning to resolve these issues and to get around it, but it was felt on consideration and with legal advice that the best way forward was to defer these. I will, however, ask your permission to allow that to happen. It is obviously a choice of the members to allow that deferral. Is there anyone that dissents on that decision, please? I see no comments in the box, so I will take that as every member is happy with that. Sarah, if you could record that, that would be really helpful. Thank you. And again, thank you, members, for your help in helping us to deal with that situation. I will move on to the first and only application that we are now dealing with this afternoon, and I will ask Mr. Hodges to present that item for us. Thank you very much. Mr. Hodges.
Thank you, Chairman. The case officer, Sophie Morsley, will be able to do the presentation for you, so I'll just hand over to Sophie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to now present the PowerPoint. No. All right. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so the application is for the demolition of the...
Nothing on my screen.
So sorry.
We can't see anything, Sophie.
Okay,
Nothing at all.
Which button do you want me to push?
None, please, Derek. Don't touch anything.
Oh, right, okay. I can see you. All...
Yeah, we don't need to see anything. Don't touch a thing, Derek. Sorry, Sophie, we still can't see your screen.
You can't see that?
No.
Sophie, if it helps, I can present I can put the PowerPoint up, and then I'm happy if you just say next to click through.
Okay.
So let me give this a go. Bear with me 2 seconds, Chairman.
Yeah, no problem, Mr. Hodges.
No, is anyone, Chairman? Are you seeing the PowerPoint now?
We are now, David. Thank you.
Fantastic! It wasn't showing up on for me. So let me just click the slideshow from the beginning. So if you just indicate next when you want me to click on, and I'll click on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so 51 Bar Gates of Christchurch. This is for the demolition of the existing building and construction of a new church building. Okay, the site is within the town centre of Christchurch and within the primary shopping core. The policies identified in the local plan show this area suitable for community activity and uses. The site lies on the corner of Bar Gates and Beaconsfield Road, which is a residential street with predominantly on-street parking. The existing church is sited on the opposite corner at number 49. Here we have the existing elevations. This is number 51 that will be demolished to facilitate the new building. And some photos. At the top you have number 51, which will be removed. It's currently occupied by an Objections and offices for the existing Baptist church. Below, the street scene shows the existing locally listed Baptist church and the development plot within the wider context of Bar Gates. Just some more photos. The top two are taken from Beaconsfield Road, looking at the side elevation of number 51 to be demolished. And then at the top, that is the side elevation of number 2 Beaconsfield Road. At the bottom, you'll see the existing car park to the rear of number 51, looking across to the side elevation of the existing locally listed Baptist church. Here we have the proposed site plan. As you can see, the proposed church building would fill the plot and provide 4 levels of worship spaces, meeting rooms, offices, and facilities for the wider community. Here we have the proposed front elevation at the top. This is the one that will address Bar Gates. The building has a contemporary appearance with the use of brickwork, cement panels, and a standing seam metal roof. There will also be solar panels on the front roof slope facing Bar Gates. This is the other side elevation and the rear elevation, which is adjacent to number 2 Beaconsfield Road. As you can see, has been stepped down to try and minimise the impact on the occupier's house and garden. And these are just some photos. So at the top, that's the rear boundary of the site, and you can see the side wall of number 2 Beaconsfield Road. The next one is from the garden of number 2, looking towards the back of 51 across the car park. Then we have the side elevation of number 2, and again, views into the rear car park and the rear of number 51. Consideration has been given, as you can see in the design, to the impact on the residential amenities of number 2. However, we feel that the built form, because it still extends right across the boundary, this will have a negative impact on the residential amenities of the occupiers of number 2. This is the proposed lower ground floor plan, so kind of the basement consists of meeting and activity rooms and a changing places toilet facility. The ground floor plan includes the main worship space, which is a double height space, and the main functional foyer. The proposed first floor plan with smaller worship spaces, activity rooms and offices. And the second floor, which includes mainly offices and further meeting rooms. This is the cross section. The plan clearly shows the 4 levels of accommodation and the heights relative to the surrounding buildings. At the back, you've got the ones on Bar Gates and then number 2 Beaconsfield Road. Here we have it, street scenes, showing it in a bit more context. As members will be aware from the report, there are strong concerns from the conservation team about the overall scale and design of the building and the lack of references to the existing locally listed building and the nearby conservation area. It's considered to be a missed opportunity to provide an iconic community building in the town centre. It is officers' view that less than substantial harm is caused to the neighbouring buildings, heritage assets, and this is not outweighed by the community benefits of the enhanced church building. And this is a photo montage submitted as part of the application to show the design of the building and its relationship with the existing church. One of the main issues with the proposal, as you'll see from the report, is the impact on parking and the vehicle movements associated with the development. There is no on-site proposed parking or dropping-off area for the new church. The existing church has benefited from around 20 on-site spaces, and the increased demand based on a maximum capacity of 250 people is 60 spaces. There is capacity in the other town centre car parks, especially on Sundays. However, for other times of the week, the use of this size of building could result in conflicts and highway safety issues. The applicants have offered to enter into a legal agreement. There are two options that they have suggested: either cease use of the existing church on first operation of the new church, or to prevent use of the main worship spaces in both buildings at the same time. However, as outlined in paragraphs 97 and 98 of the committee report, it's not considered a legal agreement as the best solution, as it could stymie the use of the locally listed building in a sustainable town centre location. Whilst there is no doubt the proposal would provide for an enhanced and valuable community facility in a sustainable location, this is outweighed by the highway impacts, design and heritage concerns, and impact on residential amenities, and it's therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, could we have any objections or supporter statements, please?
Yes, Chairman. We have two written statements in objection. We also have two written statements in support, and I understand that the ward councillor would also like to address the committee. So I will commence by reading the first statement of objection that we've received from Becky Myers from Beaconsfield Road. When I moved into my little house, it was meant to be my forever home, but now it no longer feels like home, and I'm thinking of moving, and that is all thanks to the Baptist Church and its parishioners. The parking issues are constant, all week long, but worse on Sunday when the road is taken over by the parishioners. They spill out of the full Raxworthy car park and onto our road, including all along the double yellow lines. A lot are elderly and blue badge holders, so park as close to the church as possible. The level of rudeness from the parishioners is something I've never experienced before and astounds me. They are totally unapproachable. I've been sworn at and had fingers stuck up at me by elderly parishioners numerous times when I've asked politely for them to move their vehicle as they are causing an obstruction. The noise they make early, 7:30 a.m. onwards, with car doors banging, people gathered outside, chatting loudly, then the singing and instruments, drums included, is totally disrespectful to the residents. I had to go out 3 times at 7:30 on a Saturday morning to ask them to keep the noise down, and was told I should move house if I didn't like it. They have never attempted to be part of our community. None of the parishioners live down this road. They come from far and wide. They are the ones that have voiced their support of this gargantuan build. They don't live here, we do. I have spoken many times to the pastor, Chris Brockway, about the issues to no avail. The new church is ugly and neither resembles a church nor fits in with the Victorian properties on Beaconsfield Road. It is on the corner of a small narrow cul-de-sac and the busiest arterial road in and out of Christchurch, Bar Gates. As the plan is to excavate a basement, I am very worried about the foundations and structure of my property being damaged due to the vibrations from deep excavation. Who would have thought when I moved in that my problem neighbours would end up being the church at the end of my road? Thank you, Christchurch Baptist Church, for making me feel this way and making me feel like I have no choice but to leave. I loved the idea of having a church on my road when I moved in, but due to the endless issues you and your selfish, uncaring parishioners present, it has been an expensive lesson learned. However much you say you're part of the community, actions speak louder than words, and I'm afraid yours speak volumes. I will then go on to read the second statement of objection from Sylvia Musk, also from Beaconsfield Road. The plans for the new Baptist church, which would be situated on one of the main arteries into the town, are modern, huge and totally out of keeping with this area of Christchurch town centre. This is an area of small Victorian terraced cottages, for example, Beaconsfield Road and Avon Buildings. The buildings along Bar Gates are also of an era. If this plan were allowed to proceed, it opens up the door to other development that could totally change the face of our historic town centre. The Magistrates court site, at least, has been planned with some degree of keeping the Victorian look. Reading the consultation document, the comments about traffic issues seem to me unrealistic. The church and church hall at present have lots of group and services with people coming and going most days of the week. This presumably will increase if a larger building is available. Parking will be an issue for those people, as there will not be any on-site parking facility at all, and 2 other large car parks currently used by people attending the church are also being lost due to redevelopment. Beaconsfield Road suffers from church traffic. At the junction with Bar Gates it is narrow, and at present people with blue badges park there for easy access to the building, thus sometimes making access down the road a little difficult. If this is the size of building required for the church to go forward, they should move out of the area and find a more suitable site which could accommodate the congregation and their vehicles. I oppose these plans on 2 grounds: visual impact on the area and traffic management issues regarding increase of traffic flow and lack of parking facilities. The next statement I have is in support of the application and comes from the Christchurch Baptist Church. As applicants, we are pleased your officer's report provides a balanced view on the application and notes the significant contribution that the church makes to the local community. The success of the church has led to growth in the congregation, and in order to provide for future needs, we need to improve facilities. Whilst we value our existing building, the scope for expansion is limited, and its designation as a local heritage asset hampers redevelopment. Sensitive to the location and character of the area, we commissioned a local architect with experience in church design and sought early guidance from the planning department through a pre-application consultation. We acknowledge that the proposed building is larger than the present building on this site. Nevertheless, this is a town centre location, and Bar Gates has a commercial character, and thus there is no better place to provide a church building. We appreciate that the Council's Conservation Officer has some reservations with the design. Design is, to an extent, subjective, and we ask you to remember that this scheme enables the existing, locally listed church building to be retained. Our design will create a vibrant and attractive building. Even if one were to disagree with that view, your officer concludes any harm to be less than substantial, and this therefore needs to be balanced against the significant public benefits of the scheme. In terms of highways, your officer's concerns are with the possibility of church services simultaneously taking place in both the old and new church buildings. That is not our intention. We have taken legal advice and offered to enter into a legal agreement to prevent that from happening. We intend to retain the old church building, but should that change in the future, there are alternative uses in the same use class to which it could be put to without giving rise to similar parking demand on Sunday mornings. We have no objection to such an agreement, and we understand that your highways officer would be satisfied with that approach. With regards to the relationship to nearby homes, members will see that our building is carefully designed following the pre-application advice, stepping down at the rear to ensure that the amenities of 2 Beaconsfield Road are preserved. Members, your officer's report noted that the local plan supports this type of use, and the development will provide an enhanced community facility. To do so, the building must inevitably be larger, but ours is an attractive design that is sensitive to its neighbours. Whilst we note your officer's concerns on traffic, our legal advice is that a Section 106 agreement can address that issue. We would ask that the committee support this application. Thank you. And the last statement that I have was submitted from a local resident in support of the application, David Edwins. As a resident of Christchurch for the past 10 years, I would like to remind the planning officer that it is a town of great contrasts. We have the Priory Church, begun in 1094, the Old Castle, and other buildings of great age of which we are proud. Yet also there are many modern buildings too, like the new flats built beside Stour Road traffic lights. The great thing about a developing town like Christchurch is that it keeps developing as time goes by and does not stand still. We are an eclectic town, that is what gives its charm. The development in Bar Gates is in keeping with its surroundings, and the building lines are maintained. The proposed height is not out of keeping with other buildings in Bar Gates and dips to be at the same level as Beaconsfield Road houses at the rear. Regarding the thorny question of parking, I would simply ask the question why the new development on the pit and police station site has been allowed even though it robs the town of valuable car parking. Hence, any query as regards the Christchurch Baptist site in this regard is rather strange, as the council has removed a couple of hundred parking spaces and the Baptist church may lose 12. There are plenty of other spaces for parking within a few minutes walking distance of the church. If Christchurch is going to develop sustainably, then the plans of the Baptist Church include many ecologically sound building practices and will be a beacon for other future developments. The church, I understand, is going to use the building to benefit the community, those serving the poor and disadvantaged of the Sound. The building would enable them to work more efficiently in this area and provide a service which would enhance the town's provisions. No town can stand still in its development, and although we honour our past, we have to look to the future too. I would heartily commend this development and Bar Gates for your approval. Thank you, Chairman. They're the written statements that I have received.
Thank you, Sarah. I will now call on Councillor Mike Cox, who wishes to speak on this application. Councillor Cox, are you with us?
I am, Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead with your deputation, please, Councillor Cox.
Thank you for listening to me today. I actually speak in two roles. One as a town councillor for Christchurch Town Council, actually on the planning committee. And I'd remind the committee that Christchurch Town Council doesn't have a great record, the planning committee anyway, of supporting measures such as this. Usually it's against them. But in this instance, the committee decided to raise a support to this particular development, and the reasons are quite clearly in the report. And with a few conditions to do with the archaeological survey, travel plan, and the construction management plan. So the feeling certainly was that there was no problem with the design at all. In fact, it was quite welcomed. The Bar Gates is a gateway to Christchurch, and if you're honest, it's in a bit of a poor state. And the development, the investment that this would be in improving that particular road, I think would be very, very welcome. I just wanted to move on to the reasons for refusal by the officers. I was puzzled by the first reason, which seems to say that it considered to result in less than substantial harm. That would seem to me to be a reason for approval. So I was slightly puzzled by that. But that particular item was considered by the town council. We did feel it wouldn't harm the area. In fact, it would improve the area in terms of the character and appearance. In terms of the second reason for a refusal, you see the officer appears to talk about the traffic management, and frankly, any development of this scale in Christchurch or probably anywhere in BCP would face the same problems in terms of traffic management. It is one of the recommendations of the Town Council, in fact, to have a proper travel management plan in place to make sure, and that could be set as a condition, not necessarily a refusal. In terms of the third item for refusal, I have to say I'm slightly puzzled, and hopefully Sophie can enlighten me. Although I sit on the planning committee, I'm not trained in any way, so excuse me for my ignorance. But it does say there's an adverse impact on the residential amenities of the occupiers of number two, that's right. And it goes on and says the amount of built form on the southwest boundary of the plot will result in a loss of light and intrusive form. Now, the southwest side is the road side, so I'm not quite sure what effect that will have on anybody's garden area, because it seems to be well away from any gardens. And that's my point. I leave it to you guys as experts to decide whether the impact on number two is sufficient enough. And I do sympathise considerably with the two objectors. There's absolutely no excuse for rude behaviour by ordinary people, let alone churchgoers. So I do feel as though the lady in question should have reported it to the police, if nothing else. In terms of the second objector's remarks, I have to say I disagree with the visual impact. I think it would be a considerable improvement. And the second point about the travel management. I agree, and it's part of what we've recommended as the Town Council. So, but I do think it's a condition, not necessarily a point for refusal. So those are my points, Mr. Chairman. I am generally in support of this measure. I think we don't deserve to lose the Baptist Church from Christchurch. It does an awful lot of good for the area and for the people of Christchurch, both churchgoers and non-churchgoers. So I think we should support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Sophie, is there anything that you would like to come back on what you've heard from the deputations?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to clarify a couple of points. In terms of the less than substantial harm, that is a test set out in the NPPF. So if it's considered that there is less than substantial harm towards heritage assets, this needs to be outweighed by public benefits, and that's discussed further in my report. And in terms of the third reason for refusal on the boundaries, the southwest boundary is actually referring to the boundary of number 2, Beaconsfield Road, and not number 51. So that's the reason for that. But if members decide to go with the recommendation, I can tweak that to make it more clear, if that would help. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. I have an RTS from Lee Smith on transport, and he wants to clarify something. So before I go to members to speak, Mr. Smith, would you like to clarify your points, please?
Afternoon, members. Can you hear me okay? Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah, just in Sophie's presentation, there was a reference to the development being having a shortfall of 60 spaces. That actually is a reference to the existing church. If this development went ahead, actually our calculations overall are that with the existing church and its loss of parking and the proposed church, there would be 160 space shortfall overall. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Smith. Appreciated. So, members, I will come across to members who wish to speak on this application. If you do wish to speak, please type RTS in the column, and I will come to you as quickly and in as much order as I can. So, over to you, members. Councillor Lepodovin.
Thank you, Chair. My question follows on very nicely from Mr. Smith's summing up. In fact, it's two questions, but both to do with travel and transport and space. The first question is a detail. Churches have weddings and funerals with official cars. I'm wondering what the arrangements are for dropping off and then the parking of those official cars, the hearse or wedding cars and so on. There doesn't appear to be any space even on the frontage to drop off. The other question is to do with the parking car parks. We've been told that 2 local car parks are closing. Can you clarify exactly which those are and where the remaining available car parks will be? Thank you.
Over to you, Sophie.
I might defer to Lee on these parking questions.
Yeah, that's fine. If someone can perhaps put up the location plan, then members can see the context of the site. Then I can refer to the location of the nearest car parks. So I don't know if David or Sophie can perhaps put the location plan up, while I just answer the councillor's query regarding drop-off and pick-up. Yeah, the existing church, there has to be lines to the front, but could be used for drop-off and pick-up. But you're right, the current proposal has no servicing facilities on the site, and at the moment there's a rear car park which could be used for drop-off and pick-up. But obviously on the site, when it's all developed as a new church, that rear car park will be lost. So there'll be no servicing provision on site as part of the proposal. So they will either have to drop off at the front, stop on Bar Gates, or park in Beaconsfield and perhaps reverse back out onto Bar Gates. With regards to the existing car parks, there's a reference to loss of car parks immediately opposite the site, the other side of the road from Bar Gates. So if you're looking at the plan that's on the screen in the blue shaded area, and then you went ignoring the compass now, but as you look at the site, if you went to the south west, you'll see some car parking and access road. That's the former police station and magistrates court site, which is earmarked for housing. The other nearest car park is to the east of the site, to the rear of Waitrose. I think it's perhaps just worth pointing out here that obviously church activities don't just take place on a Sunday when perhaps that car park is empty. And we have done surveys of the demand on those car parks, and clearly, particularly Saturdays, the Waitrose car park is particularly full. Other town centre car parks are further away from the site. It's not shown on the plan, but members who know Christchurch Town Centre will know they are through the subway. There's one to the rear of Marks and Spencer's. They all involve crossing over the road and getting further away from the site. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
So, can I just make sure I've got this right? So once the scheduled development of the police station site goes ahead, the only close public car park is the Waitrose one.
That is correct. Yes, it's a pay and display public car park at the rear of Waitrose. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have a number of concerns about this development. I think the parking impact is potentially significant. I visited the site on a couple of occasions and looked around the area, and do note that the parking impact is probably at its greatest at the weekend when most parishioners attend service, but there are other incidents during the week. I think we have to remember that the people that reside in the immediate area live there 24/7, so their visits are not intermittent, they're permanent. And the problem with parking and drop-offs is that people will always gravitate to the point of destination. And when that's not available, particularly on a wet or inclement weather day, they will attempt to get to where they can and then leave and park elsewhere if they can. That actually causes quite a lot of noise disruption to both, not just people, but traffic flow. I am concerned about the mass of the building and note the loss of parking behind the current building. I think that's quite a significant consideration. And I'd also add that, yes, there is a lot of Victorian buildings of some note in the area. In part, this is undermined by some of the other developments that have taken place, but it's not a reason not to make the right decision. So I have those concerns: parking, mass, and the impact on the conservation area. Therefore, I will not be supporting the application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Paul Hilliard.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a question for the officer, please. So with regards to the impact on number 2 Beaconsfield and residential amenities, I fully understand that the development seems to be right up to close to the boundary wall and its expanse all along the boundary wall. What, in simple terms, what would the officer expect a distance to be and a height between the development and the residential, not to be an impact? Thank you. Sophie? I know it's putting you on the spot a bit, sorry.
No, Sophie, I wonder if you can answer that for him.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I wouldn't want to specify a particular distance because it all depends on design and height as well. But yeah, it's the spread of that large building right across that boundary that causes impact in terms of overbearing, especially from their rear garden. So as they have tried to minimise the impact, but it's considered it hasn't gone quite far enough. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Councillor Hilliard. Vice Chairman, Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Chair. I've got the usual concerns that I think everybody else has with the sort of the bulk and the massing of the building. It is quite a large building that's being proposed on that site. I mean, in terms of floor space, there must be quite a significant increase in in floor space from the current building to where we are now. And I don't think that would usually be acceptable if it was a residential development or something very similar. So it's a lot of nobody's touched on so far, but the appearance of the building in that location. I mean, Christchurch has a very long history, hundreds of years. It has a very distinct architecture within the town centre, and this building, I don't feel really fits in with that style of architecture. It looks too modern and too. You would expect it in perhaps an area where modern architecture is more of the regular. There's obviously some issues over the parking traffic management. That area can get very busy, not just on Sundays. I know that having lived in the town for 32 years, and there would definitely be some bigger issues when the other car parks closed due to surrounding developments. And then I've just got two questions. The first one over the heritage assessment. This site is only about 100 or 200 metres away from a Saxon burial ground, and I was wondering whether there's been any discussions over whether there should be some digs to see whether anything historical is there. And then the second one being a SUDS issue. I read in the report that the current building is currently draining into the mains, and whether any discussions have happened as to whether we could sustainably deal with the rainwater on the roof now that the proposal is much larger in roof space.
Sophie, I wonder if you could answer those inquiries, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. In terms of the archaeological implications, we have consulted the senior archaeologist at Dorset Councils and also Historic England, and they have not suggested any archaeological briefs or any further conditions. So, yeah, we are satisfied that it won't have an impact on the archaeological significance of the site. And secondly, to do with surface water management, I just refer to paragraph 102 of my report. It has been proposed that a rainwater harvesting system is put in place along with a potential water attenuation tank. And if members did want to approve it, we could secure further details of surface water management. But it has been something that's been carefully considered by the applicants. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Councillor McCormack, are you happy with that, or do you wish to come back?
No, I'm happy with that. I would have preferred to have had the SUDS details before this meeting rather than now, but we are where we are. So,
thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peter Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. I must disagree with my ward councillor entirely. I've had countless numbers of residents who strongly object to this proposal, large dominant building, especially it's in the town centre conservation area. The scale, design and the mass would cause significant harm and to the character of the area. And also, Chairman, when the police station site was granted, it made a loss of over 200 car parking spaces. So that is another big problem. I'd also concerned that we have many established planning policies that fully support this application to refuse. Also, Chairman, what I would like to do is to take this opportunity of sincerely thanking our conservation officer for her input and our planning officer for their precise and detailed reason for refusal. Very professional, and the public will be delighted. So if it's the right time, Chairman, I think that after listening to the office report, our conservation office report, that I would like to propose that this application is refused.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hall. I will put you down as making a move to accept the officer's recommendation on this. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Hall's move, please?
I would second that, Chairman Tony O'Neill.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Are there any other members that would like to speak on this application before we move forward? I have nothing coming forward on the screen. So therefore, I will move to the vote. I too would like to thank the planning officers for this. It's a very detailed report, and I realise that it is one of those reports where some people will be happy, some people won't be. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the residents for writing in their quite frank and sincere objections to this, and for us having to hear what distress the church is already causing them at this moment in time. What I will do now is I will call out each member's name in turn, and if you could indicate for or against the application, we will take note of that. So I have a move by Councillor Hall, seconded by Councillor Tony O'Neill, to refuse this application in line with the officer's recommendations. And I will start by calling...
Chair, could you just clarify the move, please? I was just confused by what you've just said.
Sorry, Councillor Bartlett. The move is to accept the officer's recommendation of refusal on this application. Are you happy with that, Councillor Bartlett?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So the move to refuse, and I will ask firstly Councillor Simon McCormack.
For.
Councillor Steve Barron.
For.
Councillor Steve Bartlett.
For.
Councillor Simon Bull.
For.
Councillor Malcolm Davies.
For.
Councillor Norman Decent. Councillor Decent. Oh, I will come back to him. Councillor Peter Hall.
For.
Councillor Paul Hilliard.
For.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
For.
Councillor Marion Lapodoven.
For.
Councillor Bob Lawton.
For.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
For.
Councillor Derek Borthwick. Councillor Borthwick. Councillor Malcolm Davies.
For.
Councillor Norman Decent. Could the officers please indicate if either of those two councillors are still online, please?
Yes, Chairman, I believe that they are. Let's see if we can get them to be able to speak.
Councillor Borthwick, can you hear us? Councillor Decent? Councillor Borthwick? Councillor Decent? I'm unable to get a response from either of those two councillors. I will move to my own consideration, and I am also for this move. I will try one more time for the two other councillors. If not, we will move forward. Councillor Decent? Councillor Borthwick? Sarah, I'm not able to get a response from either of those two, so am I able to call that to a conclusion in the voting? I think from my list in front of me that it will make no difference to the outcome of this vote.
Yes, Chairman, I have a note that the vote so far is unanimous. Obviously, it will be with 2 abstentions.
Okay, we will move forward on that basis then, if we may, Sarah. If you could confirm the numbers, please.
Yes, Chairman, it's 12 in favour, none against, with the 2 abstentions of the 2 councillors that we can't reach at the moment.
Thank you for that, Sarah. In that case, that application is refused in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much to everyone taking part, all councillors involved on that one. As I say, members, that is the only application we have this afternoon. If I could just ask you to stay on for 2 minutes, and I will call this the end of the meeting, Sarah, if we could come offline, please.